Wait, why is this? Actually, this look kind of good. I'm sorry. Maybe my standard for good is really bad, but anyway.
No, it's good. Here, let me
Okay.
just, get a little closer to you.
Yeah, totally.
And you get a little back, so there. How's that?
Hi. Okay.
Okay.
Oh
Are
my
we good?
God. Yeah, we're good. Okay,
Are we live?
we're live.
We're
Yeah,
live.
sorry.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Also, there's connectivity issue too, but hi, Anna. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Thanks. Great to be here, Grace. Good to see you.
You too. Okay, so to start the show, I would love for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So obviously, I feel like you have a very successful career, but like the way you describe it is like very interesting. So why don't we start with early on in your career? So for example, the pet.com, as well as like you started a company with someone you met on the plane.
Yeah.
What were some like core lessons that you've learned early on in your entrepreneurial journey that you could use today as an investor?
Yeah. Okay. So we could spend an hour talking about my career history, so I won't go into all of it. But I think the basic theme of my career boils down to I have a very high risk tolerance. And I think that's also an important thing for a founder, because when you think about founding a company, it's actually a crazy thing to do. You have to dream something into existence that doesn't exist and think that you may succeed against all odds. And so if you look back at my career, I was at McKinsey in the late 90s. Before that, I was actually a corporate lawyer. So I was in very traditional fields. And in 1999, I got a job offer to go work at petstore.com in San Francisco. And everyone was leaving banking and consulting at that time to go work at a .com. It was sort of this giant sucking sound from New York out to San Francisco. Within 2 weeks, I had quit my job, sold my apartment, and moved to San Francisco. And in retrospect, it was kind of a crazy thing to do, but it set me off on this incredible journey of working in small companies, of being a founder, and now, becoming an investor. And so if I hadn't been willing to take that risk, none of this other stuff would have happened, right? So I think, you always regret the shots you don't take, or whatever is the saying. And so, I don't have those kind of regrets looking back, because I've taken a lot of risk. Flash forward to, let's say 2006 or 2006, I was on a cross-country flight. I was sitting next to an interesting woman who heard about my background growing up in a New York book publishing family. And she pitched me an idea on the flight for a business. And by the end of the flight, she had asked me to be her co-founder in this business. And I ended up deciding to start a company on a flight with a woman that I had just met. It was kind of funny because I was also 7 months pregnant at the time. And my husband and 3 other kids were in the back of the plane. So I get off the plane and I go, I just met this woman and she has this idea and we're going to start a company. And he, of course, looked at me like I was absolutely crazy, which I was. But we did it. And it was, it was an incredible journey. That company was Scribble Press. I was the CEO of that company for 6 years. Had a great sort of founder story arc with that one. Learned a lot of, lessons, things I did well, things I didn't. Now I'm bringing all that forward into, how I invest. So
I wonder, like, one thing I was like listening to your other podcast, I thought it was really interesting. You thought yourself are like, not as qualified as other candidates when you applied to Techstars. Yeah. And why don't we talk about like, what do you think was like, I guess, like what were the qualification, quote unquote, and then what are something that you feel like, I guess you have to, learn to like adapt into that position, and like I guess like how did that kind of shape you into like becoming an investor at M13? And then some of the story you told were like so funny about like I guess like in Paris Hilton's house, the dog peed on you or something. I was like, what is going on here?
I'll tell that story too. But let's go back to the Techstars story. So this is important because I think this is something that women in particular do. There's actually research on this. So I looked at the qualifications for the job and I said, oh, I don't meet those qualifications. It was, long track record as an angel investor. It was like good network in the LA tech ecosystem. I didn't have that. I had a good network in the San Francisco tech ecosystem, but I was not known in the LA tech world. I had not done a lot of angel investing. And my company that I started, it was a tech startup, but it was a retail concept. And then we had a kids ed tech platform, and it didn't feel like a serious technology company to me. So I didn't think I met any of those qualifications. The only reason I was in that process is because a friend had recommended me. So that's an important lesson for women, which is, don't men will typically apply, the research shows, if they have like 50 or 60% of the qualifications. Women will only apply if they have 100%, right? So I wouldn't have even thought to apply for that role. In any event, I ended up getting the job, and long story short, the reason was they said the thing they were looking for more than anything else was emotional intelligence, and that that I had clearly excelled on that point, and so that's what led me to got the job. It wasn't anywhere in the job description. It didn't say emotional intelligence. So I think that was just an interesting point about how to out and how not think you're underqualified, even though on paper you might not meet the qualifications. If you think you can do the job, go for it anyway. So I did that for 4 years. I had an incredible time. LA Tech community is so special. Just a side note, the way the LA Tech community is showing up today to support people after the fires is absolutely incredible. The leadership of people like Dustin Rose and Mark Schuster to help raise money and kind of bring the community together to help people has been incredible. So, but that LA Tech community, was thriving when I took over the Techstars role in 2016. And I got to kind of build a community and build a community of founders and investors there in LA, and was loving it. I wasn't looking to move at the time. It was the middle of the pandemic. Asking to, I want to interview 13, and I had known Carter and Courtney. They actually were a small LP in a fund that I had. We had done some events together, so I knew them, didn't know them super well. I wasn't really looking to move, but I had such amazing things about they were building. So a variety of backgrounds that they had brought together to be partners at M13, and they had hired a friend of mine, Lizzie Francis, who was the one that referred me. And so I interviewed, and my interview with Courtney was at Paris and Carter's house, and she is famous for, loving dogs, and she's got these amazing dogs. And one of them, who was just a puppy at the time, he was a little tiny puffball, crawled up on the couch and sat on my lap and peed on me in the middle of the interview, and I didn't know what to do. but it was a moment of levity. And Courtney and I kind of laughed it off, and and it's been a great journey. I've really built a strong foundation there, and love working with the team and partners, and what Carter and Courtney have built and created is like incredible. So
I want to shout out to the whole M13 team, because I feel like, I think we met at the Latif Mark Race invited me to Carter's house for like the Web3 dinner thing. And then I feel like you guys are like literally one of the, I guess, like biggest name in the LA tech ecosystem now. And then I'm like, I guess we could start with like, when you, I guess, first of all, how do you build up the network in Techstar era, and how do you like transfer that into like investing because I think, as you mentioned, like when they I think they reached out to you when they just started not long ago, and how do you kind of like build this fund from scratch, or like build up the reputation, build up the network, like now you guys are a leading fund from LA, so how do you kind of like build that brand to make it work?
Well, I'll talk about my own work, kind of building the Techstars community and network. So the philosophy at Techstars is do what's best for founders and give first, which means approach the community not looking for a transactional relationship, but just how can we help founders? That's the whole ethos of Techstars, right? And so I built a community based on how do we just help founders, and that's really how I show up. That's sort of also my personal ethos, is I am here to be of service to founders. Right. And so when you build a community based on an idea of service and mutual support, rather than what can I get out of this relationship, that's the foundation of a strong community. And so so people want to come and be a part of it, because people fundamentally want to help startups. So you can find all kinds of interesting operators, other investors, advisors that want to give their time to help entrepreneurs succeed, even if they're not themselves being an entrepreneur. So I built a community of really, interesting individuals who had a lot to offer around that sort of Techstars community. So then you you take that network, which was really like a grassroots founder first network that I had built, and then you add it to really a different network that Carter and Courtney had already established. Really more, I mean, they have an incredible network that sort of spans globally and extends to large companies, and celebrities and sort of institutional investors. And so you bring all these different networks together, right? And then you cross-pollinate, and like that becomes really interesting. So they had almost a totally separate network from what I had, but together, and then what Lizzie had and what Matt Hoffman had, and my partner Christine in New York, and Latif in New York, and my partner Carl, the managing partner who was the chief operating officer of DigitalOcean. So everyone bringing their different networks together to bear is kind of what makes M13 work.
For sure. I wonder, so like when you're thinking about, I guess, like building the mind share in front of the founders, like I guess maybe we could start with like, how do you source these like really interesting deals? So for example, Fly by Jane, or like the Pilot Lady, not Pilot Lady,
Slingshot Aerospace.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Because like, how do you, first of all, like how do you identify your own category? And I felt like the LA tech scene is very different than SF, because SF, like everyone's like, I guess like infrastructure, dev tool, and like all these like, I guess SaaS related things. But now there's like a lot more diversity. So Fly by Jane is more of like a consumer brand, and then the Pilot Lady is aerospace. So I feel like those are like very completely different industries. How do you think about like, I guess like also like the valuation and the portfolio construction? Just because like I think a 2C brand is very different than the aerospace thing, and then it's very different from like everything else. Just curious.
So let's separate what I was doing when I was at Techstars, which is now 5 years ago. I came to M13 in 2020. So when I was doing Techstars LA, it was really a generalist investing philosophy. So as you said, the first company I backed at Techstars was Slingshot Aerospace, which was an aerospace data platform founded by a woman, Melanie Strickland, who had a 20-year career, in the Air Force. That for me was a founder bet. I wanted to be involved in whatever she was building. I could just tell she was going to be a special founder. The same thing with Jing. I mean, I don't think I'd ever tried to before, but it was very clear to me that Jane had a strong vision for a brand that she could build around elevated Chinese cuisine, like across a number of categories in the United States. Found a market fit for that, kind of being a chef, like being really thoughtful about how to source ingredients and like how to create a powerful brand. So I was more generalist investing. I mean, it was everything under the sun, in that fund. We don't do that in M13. We have a much more focused strategy. We invest in 4 categories: commerce, work, health, and technologies. The future of consumer and enterprise behavior across those categories. So now I've gotten a lot more focused. I invest in work automation, enterprise AI, beauty marketplace, and commerce enablement. So really, are we dead?
We're not dead. But the connectivity here
is
okay. Very interesting.
Hopefully we'll get a recording of this and we can transcribe it and use it for other things. Who knows?
God. You know what? Let me turn on transcription as well, just in case the meeting notes app. So we have like a backup file. This is my backup.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. Just in case.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let's do that. No worries.
Oh my god. Okay.
No worries.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
So transitioning, and also from being a pre-seed investor to being really a Series A investor. It's high conviction, low velocity, meaning not a lot of deals a year. I did 2 deals last year. That's typical for a partner. I spend a lot of time meeting a lot of people, and it has to be the right combination of market opportunity, the right team, the right go-to-market strategy, to create something we can get excited about at Series A.
I'm out of curiosity on when you're sourcing and winning and for I guess so many different startups, how do you think about spending your time, since you mentioned about the different category about consumer or consumer enablement, and then as well as the SaaS aspect of things, I guess do you I guess how do you spend your time on studying, going into deep into a particular industry, or do you do you do more thesis driven work, or do you feel the best startups are going to come from the ground, so you have to meet as many people as possible? Are you in the
Yeah. So across enterprise AI and commerce, I have specific areas where I've gone deep. So one of them you referenced was this business in a box idea, which is really vertically focused solutions for SMBs, automating everything around their business except for service delivery. So that's a thesis I have. Another thesis I have is AI-enabled B2B marketplaces. And that's a category I know well. I have 4 of them in my portfolio already. So it makes it very easy for me to approach and invest in a company in that space because I understand it well. I spend a lot of my time in boardrooms talking about creating supply and demand flywheels and take rate optimization and all of the things about kind of growing and scaling a B2B marketplace. And then on enterprise automation, I spent a lot of time thinking about horizontal AI agent builders. I invested in Maven AGI last year, which is automating customer support, but really with a bigger vision of business AGI, a very, very kind of broad vision. So I've thought a lot about that category, who will be the competitors, what it will take to win. So you have to specialize. I do not think at our level you can cover all categories effectively. And frankly, founders don't want that. They want you to come in with a prepared mind. It's not enough to be, a smart, experienced person with a good network who can give them good generalized advice. They want people who've really gone deep and understand their particular market, their approach, and are able to give them advice based on, having really studied the category.
For sure. Why don't we talk about, since you mentioned about you invest in AGI, why don't we talk about in the customer service space, what are some interesting trends out there, and then why did you pick this company over 5 other companies that are doing this in here right now?
So here's the interesting thing about customer support. It was one of the categories early on, I think maybe alongside legal, that has been identified as one of the best categories for AI automation, right? Why is this? It's because customer support is such a pain point for end consumers, right? And there's not a great solution now. The great solution that we have has been, outsourced call centers, which are just, painful all around for people trying to get an answer quickly. So great application of AI, big opportunity, lots of competition and funding. I think the differentiator in this category in particular is not how good your AI model is, because everyone has access to the same models. It's how good your data is, how good your access to data is. So what Maven has focused on is building the greatest number of data integrations. They built over 50 data integrations. So the answers that Maven AGI is able to generate for its customers are just going to be better because they're accessing a deeper pool of data, across the enterprise to come up with those answers. So number 1, data integrations. Number 2, being smart about which model you're calling on for what purpose. And number 3, personalization. So when you think about customer support, there's the sort of tier 1 answer, which is, I went through the FAQs and I gave you the best possible answer. There's the tier 2, which is, I've looked up your purchase history, right? And your history of interacting with customer support. And now I'm giving you a tailored answer based on you as a customer. That's really powerful. That's where it gets differentiated. So I think the Maven and AGI team was very smart in how they constructed the platform. So a lot of the differences are, very under the hood. How they constructed the platform, the ability of the platform to handle very complex questions. So beyond kind of where's my order, but for a complex software product, how do I use it? How do I implement it effectively? And that's what's leading to their success in the market is the ability of the platform to really handle highly personalized and complex questions. The other thing that's really important in this category is being able to talk to customers wherever they are. So text, email, chat, voice. Voice is becoming very important. Maven is rolling out voice to voice. So the problem with voice to voice is latency. So I talk, I'm waiting for you to talk back. How much time is elapsing? So Maven is solving that latency problem to provide a magical experience where I can get an AI talking back to me with very low latency, right? And that is sort of, I think, the holy grail in customer support is being able to pick up the phone, talk to an agent, right? And get an answer back that's correct, that's personalized, that accesses all of my personal data as a customer and all the company's data like that. So that's really, I think, going to be a differentiator.
So I guess who are their core customer profile? So we had Forethought founder on this, so they're working on customer service related issues, and so as I'm friends with the founder of Krista AI, so I feel like they there's a lot of different companies in the space, as you mentioned. I guess maybe it's this I guess the differentiator is because they have access to different pot of data, and what kind of data actually matter in this space right now, and how do you think about processing these different multimodal approach of voice as well as there's text, there is everything else, I guess how do you is there any qualifying numbers on people drop your company because of the agent didn't answer back to me within 35 milliseconds or something? So how do you think about from a business perspective, what actually influenced customers' decision?
So the data that matters in the initial implementation is deflection. So what percentage of questions is the platform answering correctly? So one of Maven's early customers was TripAdvisor. The Maven instance of TripAdvisor is deflecting 93% of customer inquiries. So that is an astonishing number, right? So that is absolutely the first one. It's deflection and it's successful resolution. So for customer support, that's what you're looking for. High deflection, high successful resolution. So this doesn't have to be elevated to a person, and I resolved your question effectively. So I think a lot of platforms are getting high numbers on those. Maven has, in its sort of head-to-head comparisons, been typically delivering higher on those numbers. And the reason is that, it's accessing more data, and then it's able to parse it together in a sophisticated way. So it's just generating better responses. But ultimately, I think that's going to be kind of the price of entry. So high deflection is going to be something a lot of people, I think, are going to be able to build. Then the question is, what do you build on top of it? How much can you do for me? So now you've answered my question. What else can you offer me, right? Is there a different plan that might be better for me? Is there some upsell that you can offer me? Is there something new coming down the pike that I didn't know about? And so at its most powerful, I think, Maven AGI is going to turn customer support into a sales channel and a customer success channel, right? When you think about the ability to interact one-on-one with your customers, that's a really powerful opportunity. We've always thought of customer support in terms of cost reduction. So the whole goal of customer support automation has been keep the cost down, get people off the phone as quickly as possible. When you flip that equation and you think about, my customer has just called me, they are asking to interact with me. How can I turn that into a sales opportunity, right, through AI? Because it's costing me so much less because I don't have a human on the phone. Oh my gosh, think about the potential to expand your revenue, expand your business, do more with that customer. And that's how Maven AGI is thinking about this.
For sure. I wonder, so when you were, I guess when you first started chatting with the company, what was the diligence process kind of look like? Obviously, I feel landing a big customer like TripAdvisor is very crucial at the very beginning, but I'm sure you encounter so many competitors in different categories. I guess like what would be your diligence benchmark look like? So like I guess talking to TripAdvisor probably is very helpful.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's like other, I'm sure you have chat with their design partners or like I guess like other collaborating people. And how do you think about from the revenue side or other different aspect that actually in your checklist to, pull the trigger to invest in this? Since, as you mentioned, like last year you invested in 2 companies, I feel like that's like a very high bar for like, to evaluate, to actually pull the trigger to invest. What would be on your checklist? And then how do you kind of like diligence them, or whether it's like chatting with the customers, and how many customers do you have to chat to like feel comfortable?
So we look to chat with existing customers always. And so, yes, we did talk to TripAdvisor. We talked to a couple of other customers that they had already closed with. But the most important thing we did, and a really important part of our diligence, is we made new customer introductions. So we introduced Maven AGI to 3 of our portfolio companies and companies that we knew, and all 3 decided to become customers.
Oh, wow.
So that is the best possible piece of data you can get in a diligence process. Is I've made a fresh customer introduction for you, a customer you didn't know before, and not only have they agreed to give me feedback, but now they want to be your customer. So as an example, in that process, we interviewed Maven AGI to Row, the complete business banking solution, which is one of our portfolio companies.
They're also very popular, like in New York and SF everywhere.
Row is, a company we're incredibly excited about. It's growing really quickly. They're here at the conference. They had an amazing dinner last night. But what was wonderful about that introduction was Maven became a Row customer, said, this is an incredible platform, it's just what we need. They became a Row customer, and Row became a Maven customer. And now Row's head of customer success has become a big advocate for Maven out in the market, speaking on their behalf. She's an incredible customer success leader, and they've implemented Maven AGI in like some really interesting ways. So that was one of the things that got us really excited about the see companies we know well wanting to adopt the product.
For sure. This is okay. It's back. We're back. Okay, so I guess like how do you think about like winning the deals? Obviously, when you introduce them to 3 clients, that's like a big plus, right? But how do you think about? I guess like there's a lot of whenever there's like a company that's like doing very well, there must be other investor that's chasing them. How do you think about positioning yourself to win? And then obviously in this case, it's like the customer introduction. And how do you think about, I guess like generally to build like a personal, I wouldn't say just personal brand, but also it's your track record as well as like your other add-on value to like the portfolio founder, and how do you think about like going forward with like continuously strengthen the brand?
Yeah. So I think winning deals is an alchemy of people knowing our firm and our firm having a great reputation, which it does. It's growing. We haven't been around 30 years, but I
also want to know, I feel like this is such a fast, I feel like M13 has been there forever, but now you are saying it's like only there for like, you joined 5 years ago, and then I feel like the fund didn't establish that long, but they built like a pretty good reputation now. Ecosystem. So how do you think about like from brand building as a fund too?
A firm is a compilation of its people. So I think Carter and Courtney have brought together an incredible team of people which make up the M13 universe. And we have a very clear, consistent message about how we're supporting founders. And our brand is built slowly, one relationship at a time. It's founders being out in the market, saying great things about us, saying that we are the investor that every investor says they are, saying, saying we're, an incredibly helpful board member, and the most valuable investor on their cap table. Like we get that a lot, So it's doing the work consistently day in and day out, that is going to build our brand. That takes time. In this particular situation, I had a personal introduction to the team. With Morgan Blumberg, who I do a lot of my AI investing, Morgan and I had been looking at the customer support category. We really knew it inside and out. And I also saw and was really excited about the bigger business they were trying to build. And that was one thing that the team was really looking for, someone that understood the market deeply and how they were differentiated, because we did some deep product research and we were able to kind of compare them directly to the other products in the market. In a way that was very nuanced, and then also kind of put a pin in where they were going and want to be on that journey with them. There were a lot of other folks at the table, including some names that are, have been around longer, bigger, more established than M13. And they felt like we were the right ones because of the way we showed up, did our homework. I flew out to meet them. We flew to Boston. We knew the category. We knew their product. We had already done a lot of work by the time we showed up there. And I think founders appreciate that. They want to know that you're not kind of practicing spray and pray with your approach, that you're really kind of putting energy behind them, and they see that that's how you're going to show up as an investor, and that's how we have showed up.
I guess when you're first mapping about customer service as a category, so how do you think about I guess from the qualitative perspective, which subsector actually have potential to have the next, I guess, unicorn or whatever you call it these days, and then how do you think about how a particular company is going to reach $100 million ARR at some point? Because I feel like nowadays, in a lot of AI products, you could get the customer once, but the customer may not stay because of everyone, especially big companies, they're trying to try different AI products. But in the end of the day, it's what's going to work. I guess how do you think about picking customer service as a category? And then also, as you mentioned, there's a lot of big players already in the space. How do you think about, I guess, picking one particular category to go deep dive into it, just because there's so many exciting stuff? And I feel living is kind of everyone picked the legal space, so why not the legal space too? Yeah.
So I thought customer support was a great entry point into business process automation across the enterprise. So to deliver a great AI for customer support, you have to completely understand the product. You have to understand the customer base. So you have to be plugged into both customer data and product data, which means that that platform is now prepared to do a lot of other jobs across the organization. So when you think about what is the important data that runs a company, right? So imagine an AI brain that has learned everything about your product and how it works and everything about your customers. Okay, now I can take that to marketing, and marketing can build some automations on top of it. Sales can build automations. We can do internal automations for the product team. The product team can access all that great feedback coming in from the customer support and use it to drive the product roadmap. So as an entry point for this bigger idea of business AGI, customer support is the perfect starting point because it meets a really big and very painful need. Customer support, has been crying out to be improved for decades, is a real pain point for all companies. And it paves the way for this bigger opportunity, much more than, say, starting in outbound sales automation, which is really more of an outer facing kind of process automation. So that's why I chose to focus on customer support, because ultimately all these enterprise AI companies are the same under the hood. They are model selections plus your data plus a set of automations on the top, right? And agentic AI and generative AI in combined sort of series of workflows. That is what enterprise workflow automation is going to look like. And I don't think companies are going to have, this is my AI automations for marketing, this is for sales, this is for product, this is for HR. I think they're going to have one or two to power the entire organization. So customer support as a starting point to kind of expand across all of the workflows happening in that company.
I think that's a really interesting take, just because I feel I'm just seeing the AI into various different sectors, I guess like AI just like in different domain expertise agent.
Yeah.
It's like where a lot of like investors are investing in like the even more nichier space. But like I like what you said about like, you know, in the future, it's like, you know, I guess there is some company that will do like, you know, one company take it all or like take most, I guess, for various different tasks. So I wonder, since like you recently wrote about an article for like, you know, AI for solopreneurs, maybe we could talk about like, you know, what does the future look like for individual founders or like, you know, small business owners or like just like people in the solopreneur category as well.
Okay, that's a segue into another category that I'm really excited about. So if you look at the history of work and employment, there are more and more people working for themselves, working freelancers, working what you would call portfolio careers, where they do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? As opposed to having a job. The days in which we go to a company, have a job, move to another job and stay at that company, you know, for decades, those days are over. So when you think about what are the tools that help people put themselves into business and help them start a company where they can work for themselves, there's a really exciting opportunity for AI to automate all the administrative work around a particular category of job, so that, you know, you can work for yourself. So some of the interesting opportunities here: primary care providers. Okay, there is a huge shortage of primary care providers in the US, and part of it is it's really expensive to set up your own primary care business. There's a lot of overhead. You need space, you need a receptionist. If you can automate away all that other stuff, so it's one person doing primary care and then everything else is automated, that's a really exciting business. Independent accountants, right? There's this long tail. First of all, accounting is massively under-resourced. There are way too few accountants. So let's put accountants in the business of being able to just do the human part of the job and automate away everything else, from billing, timekeeping, you know, customer acquisition, maintaining your website, making appointments, collecting documents, even doing some of the accounting work, right? That's a great opportunity. And when you're, as a startup, when you're delivering so much value to your customers, right, you're taking away a lot of other things they would spend money on. You're massively improving their margins. You can share in their revenue because you're really their partner in helping build their business. So that's why Business in a Box is exciting, because it's work independently for themselves with their kind of AI partner that's doing everything from their administrative to their billing to their marketing, you know, to all of those functions for them, so they can focus on just business. And I think there's a bunch of verticals where this is relevant: accounting, law, any service businesses, healthcare, med spa, you know, even things like home services, repair work, specialty, a huge automate all the administrative work.
I think that's a really interesting viewpoint as well, just because I feel like I guess like, again, I don't know if it's a Silicon Valley thing, but I think like I noticed that in New York and LA, VC people are focusing on like letting the human do the human task, and then like you kind of like create an AI around like what else, like let's using a legal as example, right, or like accounting. So like basically you're saying like, you know, the stuff that you're interested in, or like, you know, helping the accountant to be more productive in their day job / like doing the accounting stuff versus like, oh, the marketing or like, you know, the back end stuff. But I think like in Silicon Valley there's a lot of like investors that are investing in just replacing accountant and replacing lawyer. I guess like why do you pick one versus another?
I think there's some places where you can deliver the work, right? And I actually think legal is one of those categories, right? I mean, so I think that the companies looking at legal and selling to general counsels and really replacing the outside counsel, that's pretty interesting. And in that case, they're delivering the work. They're not making the work easier. The things that I think are interesting for Business in the Box are things where you can't really replace what the human is doing, which is why medical care is such an interesting example, because, you know, there's a physical job to it. You have to actually be there and be present. You have to do the surgery. You have to, you know, do the Botox injection or whatever it is, right? So there's certain cases in which you can't actually automate the work away. And so in those cases, I think automating the administrative work is interesting. In the cases where you can actually do the work, those are the more interesting businesses for sure, right? So some of those, I mean, accounting would be one example of that. Law is definitely an example of that. Knowledge work, strategic planning, having your AI management consultant. I think that's a very interesting opportunity to actually deliver work. I am waiting to see, the first AI powered like McKinsey, right, with a very light human staffing. And then, heavy use of AI, but I don't think humans are going to totally go away. I really don't. There's going to be a human in the loop in most of these cases in some way.
For sure. I feel like, I guess like another question about like, like you were looking into the enable commerce. Maybe can you give us a little bit more, I guess, insights on like what is enabled commerce, and then how do you define, what are things that you're interested in, and then how does like AI kind of like shape that category as well?
Okay. Commerce enablement broadly, right? So let's simplify it. Let's break it down. So you have companies on the one side who are producing things. So what they have to do is they have to decide what are people going to want to buy, and then they have to make it. So when you think about and we also have a massive problem of companies make too much, make too little, make the wrong thing. So let's take fashion. 70% of all textiles produced end up in a landfill at some point. There is a massive problem of like lack of fit between what people are making and what people want to buy, or just people making too much. So all along that kind of value chain, inventory management, demand prediction, supply chain optimization, massive opportunities for AI before you really get to the customer. And then when you think, how are brands talking to their customers and attracting their customers, the entire world is changing because, display ads are no longer as relevant as they once were, because people aren't going to Google to start their search. They're going to Perplexity. They're going to ChatGPT. They're going to social media.
Oh my God.
We're actually live on LinkedIn. Can we just continue? Yeah.
Sorry about
that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So brands are having to really rethink, how do we get our message out to our customers? They're having to think about things like, what does AI think about me, my brand, and how can I control that? They're having to think, okay, if my Google or Facebook ads are no longer working, what's my new strategy for reaching customers? So AI is, and how do I craft the right personalized message? So on the brand to consumer side, personalizations that are coming up. There are tools to help you know what AI thinks of your brand and help you manage it. So we're interested in that brand to customer connection. We're interested in the supply chain automation. We're interested in procurement, and we're interested in inventory planning and design. So all the way through.
What do you think about like where are people gonna make money if ads is not the thing? So since you mentioned about Perplexity search, I feel like in the past people think about Google ads like the search engine is based off of ads, but now like if you're baking ads into like a Perplexity search, I feel like that's more even tailored attack to my personality. I feel like it's just like so much like you don't want the answer to be like just purely like an ad, right? So like how do you think about where the advertising industry is going to go, like playing that?
So I think that the consumer facing large model interfaces are going to have to really think hard about that, because they obviously want to create revenue streams for themselves. But right now you have an interesting situation where consumers are willing to pay a subscription. And so these chat interfaces or these LLM interfaces focused on consumers don't need the ad revenue, right? In the same, so that's a challenge for brands, right? Because then how do they get their message across if they're not actually able to pay for placement and targeting, right? And I am sure that will figure itself out. I don't know how that's going to happen yet. I don't think any of us know how, like, this is all shifting and moving so quickly. If you look at Google's ad revenue, you know, and like the declines in Google's ad revenue just over the past 12 months, I mean, it's pretty astonishing, right? And part of it is because they're disrupting themselves by putting the AI summaries at the top. So most people are getting their answer that they need without having to click through to another site because Google's just providing it. So this is all in flux. I don't know what the new revenue model is going to look like, right? But I know there's going to be one, and it's not necessarily going to be the brands that are going to figure it out. It's going to be the new platforms that are aggregating all the customer traffic that are going to figure it out.
For sure.
I also think social and creators have a big part to play here. You know, the creator economy as an idea has been around for a long time, but I think that it has actually just recently reached an inflection point where people are more and more getting their information and recommendations from people they follow who they feel a personal connection to online, right? And so those people who have curated and created an audience are going to become a new channel and are increasingly becoming a new channel for brands to reach their audience, right? And that is completely outside of the world of AI, right? And it's almost the opposite of AI. It's, I've decided to follow these 10 people because I care about their lives and I care about what they have to say. So
for sure. I wonder, so like, since you mentioned about like, you know, the rising of the brand as well as like, you know, the ads declining. So what are some like opportunities that in this like entire, I guess, creator ecosystem as well as like, you know, the ads domain, you, I guess like if there's any interesting companies or interesting things that you're seeing that you find will actually be impactful
on the ad side?
Yeah, on the ads as well as like I guess creator economy as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I think on the ad side, there's companies like Optiversal, like Big Sur, Black Crow, that are helping brands and retailers personalize their interactions to customers. So literally, I am seeing a different website than you see when I go there.
Oh wow!
Right? Yeah. I mean, that seems really impactful. On the shopping side, there's companies like Locker that are allowing people to curate their own like playlists of clothes and things that they want to purchase, and then participate in the sale if somebody actually follows them and buys something from their feed. So I think that's a really interesting model. On the brand sort of an AI side, there's companies like Profound and Bluefish that are helping brands understand what AI thinks of them, and then will help brands actively manage that as the ecosystem develops. So those are on the kind of marketing side, a couple of the things that we're interested in.
I wonder, so when you are thinking about things that are not investing in, is there like some particular category that you feel like are not worth like venture investing in the AI space?
I mean, I think it's hard to count any category out because any starting point has the opportunity to expand, as I said, because all these things are the same under the hood. So I would never say like this category is uninvestable. What I would say is someone that thinks they're going to build a big business with a small wedge. So let's say automating the work of an outbound SDR, for example, right? That is a point solution. You're not going to build a huge long-term business, I don't think, with that. You have to have the vision of expanding. So when I talk to investors, founders, I'm always talking about growth horizons. Like what's growth horizon 1, what's 2, and then what's 3. And I want to see that founders are looking beyond their first growth horizon to how they're going to capture more TAM later. So I would say what's uninvestable is just someone that doesn't have like a broad vision of how they're going to expand their TAM. Right?
For sure. Is there like any valuation benchmark that you are using for like to evaluate any of the AI company is investable or not? Just because I feel like in the AI space, there's like so varied, like all the valuation just really varies. So some are like, you know, raising $100 million seed, and then some are just like, you know, just already reaching $100 million ARR after Series A. Like, how do you think about the funding perspective in these like in this space?
I think it's a mistake to apply SaaS pricing to AI revenue. And what I mean by that is these AI companies are just growing much faster. And so, in an old world where, you had 3 million ARR and that makes a healthy Series A, you could maybe get that and not be yet ready for a Series A. So we're looking sort of more under the hood too. Is the team complete? Is the product strategy there? We're much more focused on the fundamentals of the business rather than what revenue they've achieved, because I just don't think it's as good of a signal as it used to be in the SaaS world.
Why is let's say the AI company getting 3 million ARR faster than the traditional companies? And do you feel like it's I guess how do you judge the sustainability of a particular product?
Yeah. So the reason why these companies are growing faster is because the impact on the ROI is so massive, right? So it's actually great investment on the part of their end customers, the enterprises they're selling to. But the problem is that if you think about, I'm merely building my business in sales automation, right? And thinking I'm going to grow 3x, 3x, 2x, 2x, 2x. Now there's someone over here in customer support that's going to start competing with me and coming over and taking my territory. So I think we're going to see we're seeing faster early growth. I also think we're going to see faster consolidation and company death, because all of these companies are going to start competing with each other, and it's just a very noisy market. So it's a mistake to underwrite a company the way we would underwrite a SaaS company in a world of AI, right? You have to understand that yes, the TAM is bigger, the growth is faster, and the competition is also going to come at you from every direction.
What do you think about the founder quality? Just because in the past, especially living in Silicon Valley, everyone's focusing on deep technical domain expertise. If you work at a top AI company, and then that's kind of the good label to have. But nowadays, I feel AI is encouraging the non-technical founders to build these technical product by using these low-code or no-code tools.
Yeah.
How do you think about the founder quality switching to a different kind of profile?
The profile I like is I'm looking for founders that I can imagine being the leading team of $100 million business. So I think now in today's market, experience matters more than anything. Experience coupled with the ability to move incredibly quickly. What we are seeing is the market change and the playing field changing so quickly. You've got to be willing to disrupt yourself. You've got to be willing to turn on a dime, right? And some people who are experienced and have been inside big companies are used to moving more deliberately, and that's uncomfortable for them, right? So the magic kind of combination to me is deep experience in sector, domain expertise, because that leads to trust. When you think about selling to enterprises, they're especially giving you all of their data, they need to be able to trust you. So I think that an experienced team has a real advantage in that. But on the flip side, they also have to be able to just, move quickly and pivot relentlessly in order to kind of keep up what's happening. So that's kind of the magic combination for sure.
How do you think about client acquisition? Because I know that for example, you mentioned about Maven having TripAdvisor as a client. So how should an AI company approach other tech company as clients, since I feel it's a the build to buy versus as well as just a lot of people just really guard it on their own data. How could an AI startup to approach these traditional company to acquire data or just partner with them?
I think again, it's about building trust, right? So it's figure out a strategy where you can do a proof of concept, where you don't need them to actually open up all of their data sources to you, so you can demonstrate what the product can do, right? And then you go a little bit of a step further. And so you have to sort of get into the relationship slowly. You've got to figure out a staged proof of concept approach to build trust before asking people to connect all their data sources to your platform.
For sure. I wonder, so I want to go into the personal side, because I think when I was listening to your story, so it sounds I feel you mentioned about you were really open to taking risks. What are something that you feel I guess like you feel like are the risks that's worth taking? What are something that's like not worth taking?
That's a really, so you mean on a personal basis or like a company basis?
Both, I guess.
Yeah. I would say a risk worth taking from a personal basis is one where you're gonna learn something new. So I never looked at my career like, oh, I'm taking a risk, maybe it'll pay off. It was more like, this is an interesting problem that I want to work on, and I'm interested in thinking about this and working on it. And so it's almost like the risk didn't matter because I wanted the learning. So that's really how to think about it. I think like it's not a risk, it's not a risk if you're going to, learn something and add something valuable to like your personal toolkit and set of skills, because even if it doesn't work out, you'll still have that. Right. So, and look, a lot of things in my life have not worked out. Let's be very clear. But because I took so many risks across so many different opportunities, I learned a lot of different things and I picked up a lot of tips and valuable lessons along the way. And so that's all made me who I am today. Whereas if you close yourself off from risk, you also close yourself off from learning.
That's so true. I wonder, how do you process like, the things that didn't go well, or like, I guess like for your company, you think it did not go as well as that you thought, although you guys like, sold the company and stuff like that. And then wonder like, what are some like things how do you adjust yourself to like restart again in different sector and different industry? Just because I feel like becoming an investor and like just diving deep into the startup ecosystem is very different than being a founder or working at McKinsey and stuff like that. So how do you think about that?
I think learning has become my superpower. So I used to do this talk, the 5 smartest and dumbest things I did as a founder, which was really me creating the narrative storytelling of what went wrong with the company and how the decisions that I made contributed to that. And so like, I find that very helpful. Like, let me do a retrospective on my own decision making. And I do that now as an investor, right? So I look back and I say, I've invested in over 100 companies now. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? What was my blind spot there? How can I say this all the time. I'm going to make other mistakes. You're going to make other mistakes. We all are. I just don't want to make the same one twice.
Yeah, right? So true. Oh my God. That's such a good learning though. How do you like, who's on your personal board of advisors? I have so many questions about the publishing house. Maybe that's like offline chat, because I feel like I just chatted with a founder like on Monday that he used to do like the Netflix for book stuff. So like, that's why I'm wondering like, what were you building in the press stuff?
Scribble Press?
Yeah.
Well, personal board of advisors. Let me answer that
so
first. My partners, definitely call on my partners a lot, for advice and input, and I trust them. And then, I have a really close group of women right in my corner, many of whom are other investors, who will always give me like the real take on what I'm thinking and what I'm doing. And so I've got a lot of people on speed dial that I call that I feel like are peers. And also, when I need them to be mentors and coaches and cheerleaders or whatever I need them to tell me the hard things. And I sometimes need them to, give me some encouragement when things are going badly. And that's both my partners inside, but then also my really close group of other women investors who are kind of in my corner. And the publishing industry, look, I think the publishing industry is in a really interesting transition now, similar to the entertainment industry, which is the tools of creation are now available to everyone, right? And nobody controls the tools of distribution, right? So it used to be very hard to write a book because you had to sit down and write every word yourself. And then it used to be very hard to get it published because the publishing houses controlled it. So now it's easy to write a book because you have your AI co-pilot, and it's easy to distribute it because you can just put it out in the world. So I think, we're in a kind of Wild West era, like for the publishing industry. But I think what remains true is, people respond to original ideas and someone with something to say, right? And if that's you and you have your audience, you'll be successful. But the question is, how do you build your audience? A book on its own no longer builds an audience. You have to build an audience organically in other ways, and then use that as the platform to deliver your book.
For sure. Okay, so let's wrap with like a 1 minute fire round. Okay,
Yeah.
what's your favorite book?
Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, that's why your co-founder were wearing like a toga.
Mrs. Darcy, yes. Hi, Mrs. Darcy.
Oh my God. Well, who made the biggest impact in your career?
My mom, definitely. My mom got an English PhD in the 60s and moved to New York and started her own literary agency. And I didn't realize as a kid, like how crazy brave that was of her. But she's always kind of my North Star because she put people at the center and helping people at everything she did. And she was phenomenally successful in doing that.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Oh my gosh, who would I invite to a dinner party? I am like dying to have dinner with Kamala Harris. I
Wasn't
really
she
want
here
to.
like 3
Yeah,
days
she was
ago?
here on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I really want to have dinner with her and like understand her journey.
Where can we find you outside of work?
Oh my gosh, hot yoga for sure, and hiking in the hills, and probably on an airplane between LA, New
choice.
York, and San Francisco. Oh, well, I mean, and that's the reality. But when I don't have to be working, I'm out hiking. I love the LA hills, and I love doing hot yoga. And I'm really into cooking lately. So those 3 things.
Love that. Well, Anna, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a good conversation. Appreciate you dealing with this whole chaos here. But anyway.
Yeah, hopefully we were able to actually record it. And
this is definitely recorded. It's distributed onto 6 different platforms like right now.
Okay.
And we're gonna